Assalamu alaikum. This video is about how Muslims are portrayed in films. While the specific example is Indian, if you're interested in how Muslims are depicted in cinema, then this video will still be of interest to you. We're going to be reviewing the trailer of the upcoming Bollywood film Panipat. Stay tuned. I have a little bit of a confession to make. This is a little bit of a self-expose. I not only grew up watching Indian films in the late 70s, 80s, early 90s, but I still keep up with some of the Bollywood films even today. Not the generic cliched song and dance routine kind of film, but if there's some kind of a film that is going to be a cultural landmark that has some kind of Indian national significance or some kind of historical significance, then I try to keep up. One of the disturbing trends in the past decade, or even a bit more than that, has been these historical epic films that India has been making, in which they depict medieval events in India and they portray the Muslim powers or the various Muslim kings of those times as evil, as demonic, and as outsiders. And they portray the Hindu kings as heroes, as very clean-cut, people who live by their principles, who live by the rules, who play fair. Recently, the trailer came out for a film called Panipat, which is going to be releasing in December 2019. And Panipat is about the Third Battle of Panipat, in which the Maratha Empire, which was a Hindu empire, was defeated by the forces of Ahmad Shah Durrani, also known as Ahmad Shah Abdali, who was a Muslim king in northern India of Afghani ethnicity and descent. So let's have a watch of this trailer. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find the trailer with the English subtitles for you right now or not, but it's fine. Even if you don't understand Hindi, I think you'll still understand what you need to understand just from the visuals of the trailer. So I want you to watch the visuals. I want you to watch it analytically, look at it, and we'll kind of examine it together. Here we are. By the visuals, you see, it's not just the explicit message that a film gives to you or that a book gives to you, that the media gives to you. It's also what's not said. The visual imagery and the visual cues can be quite telling. So for example, when we speak about Muslims being portrayed in a bad light in these movies, when we speak about Muslims being portrayed in a negative light, that's not only figuratively, that's quite literally as well. Because if you noticed, whenever they show the Maratha Hindu royals in this film, the scene is always very, very well lit. It's very beautiful, it's very opulent, it's very inviting. And by the way, it's a matter of historical record that the Maratha Empire tried to model its court very much along the lines of the Mughal courts. The Mughals were a Muslim North Indian empire. But regardless, in the trailer of this film, as I said, when you see the Maratha or the Peshwa royal court, very well lit, very beautiful, very opulent, very inviting. But when you see the Muslim character, because here we're seeing Ahmad Shah Durrani or Ahmad Shah Abdali being played by Sunjay Dutt, the bald gentleman with the long beard. So when you see him, he's literally inhabiting the darkness. I mean, the lighting is different. It's a scary, darker lighting. He's literally in the dark with a bit of flickering candlelight. I grew up watching the Indian cinema or the Bollywood cinema of the 70s and the 80s into the mid 90s. And I kind of miss those good old days because there was a time, believe it or not, when Muslims were portrayed in a very positive light in Indian movies. A lot of the Muslim Indian youth today think that it was always the case that Muslims are portrayed as jihadists or terrorists or whatnot. But growing up in the 70s and 80s, all of the major Indian blockbuster films, they all had positive Muslim characters. Just like today in Hollywood films, we expect that there will always be a portrayal, politically correct portrayal of a good black character or two. American sitcoms today will always have some kind of a positive gay character in the soap opera. So in the same way, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, there were always good positive Muslim characters in Indian films. The famous cliched example of that would be Imam Rahim or Rahim Chacha from the 1975 hit film Sholay. So this was the typical kind of depiction of a positive Muslim in an Indian film. But in the 2000s, things really changed. And with the introduction of these historical epics, a lot of sectarian form of thought was projected back and superimposed onto those times. So the Muslims are seen as just these foreign jihadist terrorists, and the Hindu kings are all very honorable and very dignified people playing by the rules and things like that. So from the trailer of this film, Panipat, it's not clear exactly how everything's going to unfold. The subtitle is The Great Betrayal. So that gives a little bit of a hint. I mean, does the Marathi commander of the army, does he get betrayed? Does he get defeated by some kind of deceit? Does he lose the war to Ahmad Shah Durrani due to some kind of trickery? In real history, we know that at the Third Battle of Panipat, Ahmad Shah Durrani, the Muslim king, and his forces had a decisive victory over the Maratha forces. They had a decisive victory against them. But in the film, will they show Ahmad Shah Durrani having a clean victory, a fair victory over the Hindu Maratha Empire? I'm quite skeptical, especially in light of previous similar films that have come out in the past. So for example, last year there was a big Bollywood production called Padmavat or Padmavati, and in that film they also showed the clash between a Hindu power and a Muslim empire. In that film, which takes place maybe 2 or 3 centuries before the events that are supposed to transpire in this current film, Panipat, in that previous film, Padmavat, the clash is between a Hindu Rajput king, who is known in Rajasthan as Ratan Singh, versus a Muslim North Indian king named Alauddin Khilji. In the climax of that film, there's a one-on-one sword fight between Ratan Singh, the Hindu king, the Rajput Hindu king, and Alauddin Khilji, the Muslim king. And after a long sword fight, which is actually a really good picturized sword fight, probably the best that I've seen in an Indian film, this is how it ends. So let's watch this. By the way, the taller character with the long hair, that's the Muslim king. That's Alauddin Khilji, the taller guy with the very long hair. And the fighter who still has his helmet on is the Hindu Rajput king, Ratan Singh. So let's watch this. So in regards to this second film now that I'm talking about, Padmavat, the irony of this film is that it was actually Hindu nationalists and Hindu fundamentalists who were initially upset about the film. Even before the film released, they were rioting. They were talking about how this movie shouldn't be released because they thought there was going to be some kind of a dream sequence between a Muslim king and a Hindu queen and a song and dance scene or something like that. But it's actually Muslims who should be offended by this film. It's actually Muslims who should be bothered by this film. Look at this fight climax. In this fight climax, the Hindu king Ratan Singh, he gets the better of Alauddin Khilji. He's about to finish Alauddin Khilji off, and what happens? Someone from Alauddin's side shoots arrows at Ratan Singh. Basically, Ratan Singh is defeated through trickery and through breaking of the rules and through cowardice. I mean, this is really sad because if I was an Indian Hindu, if I was a young Indian Hindu, and unfortunately most Indians don't learn their history from books, they learn them from movies. Nowadays, people are learning Indian history from Akshay Kumar films in Bollywood. That's how sad the situation is. If I was one of those young Indian Hindus, I would walk away from the cinema, I would walk away from this film, not only being proud of being Indian or being proud of being Marathi, that's all good, that's all fine and good, but I would walk away feeling disgusted at Muslims. I would feel repulsed. I would feel disgusted by Muslims. I would say, is this how Muslim kings conducted themselves? Is this how cowardly they were on the battlefield, that Alauddin Khilji couldn't beat Ratan Singh fair and square? So he has one of his men just, shoot him literally from the back, arrows in his back to defeat him. And look at how brave we Marathi Hindu warriors were. I mean, Ratan Singh is still fighting till the very end. And his words, just in case you didn't get the subtitles, Ratan Singh's words to Alauddin Khilji are, couldn't you have at least fought in this battle on some principles? Couldn't you have fought this battle with principles, Alauddin? And Alauddin says, there's only one principle in battle. There's only one principle in war, which is winning, which is success. Now again, if you're a Muslim, you can see how easily this connects with the larger Islamophobia industry, the global Islamophobia industry today that teaches that Muslims are deceitful people, they're allowed to lie, they're allowed to use trickery. All of these things go together. They're not disconnected. But what's even more sad is that this is not how history took place in the first place. This is not how Ratan Singh died. Now, the director of that film, Padmavat, which was already released last year, the director of that film perhaps could say that, well, as a director, you see, we're entitled to artistic license. You know what I mean? We do change history a little bit here and there. Or this Ratan Singh is just a composite character anyhow. In other words, he's kind of been fictionalized and put together based on different accounts of how Ratan Singh was, or how we think he was, or what we think happened to him. But the problem is that the idea of Ratan Singh fighting bravely till the death, right before he's deceived and shot with arrows in the back, this doesn't conform to any historical chronicle that I know of. Perhaps I'm wrong. For example, Amir Khosrow, who was a famous Muslim Urdu poet and chronicler and historian, he was a contemporary of Alauddin Khilji. He went on the battlefield, he surveyed the battlefield, and what he wrote was this. He wrote, on the day the yellow-faced Rai sought refuge. Rai here is referring to that Hindu Rajput king Ratan Singh. So on the day that Ratan Singh, or the Rai, sought refuge in the red canopy from fear of the green swords. The green swords is referring to the swords of the Muslims. The great emperor, meaning the Muslim king Alauddin Khilji, the emperor was still crimson with rage. But when he saw the vegetarian Rai trembling with fear, like the trampled and withered grass under the imperial tent, although Ratan Singh was a rebel, yet the breeze of royal mercy did not allow any hot wind to blow upon him. All the storm of the emperor's wrath vented itself against the other in 1980s and 1990s. They showed that politicians were self-serving, selfish people who are willing to stoke sectarian tensions. They're willing to stoke tensions between Hindus and Muslims if it gets them the vote, if it gets them the money, if it gets them the power. I'm telling you straight up, Akshay Kumar is no different, Ranveer Singh is no different, even the Khans are no different. Whatever pays off at the box office, they're willing to make those kinds of films. All of these cross-border terrorism films in which they're portraying Pakistan in an evil light, or showing Kashmiris in an evil light, or these historical epics in which they try to show Alauddin Khilji as a coward. Are you serious? Alauddin Khilji a coward, or Ahmad Shah Durrani as a coward? This is all propaganda. Don't fall for this. Learn history properly and not from Bollywood films. Thanks for watching this video. If you agree, if you disagree, I want to see your comments. But please don't post mindless hate comments without explaining why you agree or why you disagree. I look forward to your thoughts. Thanks very much.